that sort of confirmed that it wasn't an error. If there was any doubt in anyone's mind after the first, and then what was very interesting is immediately after that, all you heard was rockets in the sky over Portland, and incidentally, the 142nd Fighter Wing of the Oregon Air National Guard was the first fighter wing in the entire continental United States to be 100% combat loaded and in the air, protecting America's skies, conducting patrols all the way from the Canadian border down to Northern California. And so they were just, F-15s flying left and right, over the skies, and it was a surreal situation. And I went on September 12th to a local armory and, started the process to get back in.
How did you come to choose Oregon as the home for much of your adulthood?
Well, it's funny. My wife had visited Portland in the late 70s and early 80s and really fell in love with it then. And we always thought, and we had visited it several times, and I always thought when I got out of the Army, I'd like to settle in Portland. And, being a good husband, I realized that that's what my wife was saying we were going to do, and I supported her in that. But also my parents had moved, when we left UCLA in 90, my mom and stepdad had moved to the Oregon coast. So it also was, it's been my home of record since I left UCLA in 1990, but we've actively lived here since 2000 for the last decade.
How did you find the Rolling Stone article on me in the summer of 99, I believe?
I don't know. I don't know how that came up to, I think I did a search. It was 99, so it was like a lot of internet stuff that I was really pursuing, and you came up, and, I think it was on a basic Google search, and read about it then. I don't know. I mean, that might be, something to re-ask me once I'm prepped for that question. I don't know if you're going to...
Yeah, but I remember that was the first time we'd spoken in about 10 years.
Yeah, well, it was like, it was something like going through a bunch of UCLA crap and finding notes, and I thought, I wonder what the hell Luke Ford's up to, and then, of course, there was a whole separate life of Luke Ford than he's living these days.
We had some good times in that language lab in Japanese. Remember, we'd all lapse into Spanish when we couldn't speak Japanese?
Exactly. To this day, I say, yo quiero Nihonjin desu. It's like I always end up mixing. It's like, or ich bin ein gaijin desu ka. You start to get way too many languages mixing up in your head. I had a wonderful memory of that class when Professor Akatsuka, who was the head of the UCLA Japanese department, pulled me aside and said, "Stronga-san, you sound just like Japanese men. Pronunciation is excellent, but you not to do homework. Not to do homework, you get C+ and not come back my class." Okay, and then C+ and not come back to her class. So.
Now, when did you first arrive in Iraq or Afghanistan?
Well, I went to Afghanistan first for a short trip with my general. I was basically I was the state public affairs officer, and we went in I think it was October or November of 2003. So it was pretty early on in the conflict, and it was just as things were ramping up in Iraq. And no, as a matter of fact, I take that back. It was spring of 2003, so it was really when Iraq was just starting to, get ready to happen. And then I was there for a short time there on that visit, and then I volunteered and went back to Baghdad in November of 2004, and was there with a short break because of some orders issuance for a couple of weeks. I had to come back to the United States, get my orders fixed, and go back. But I was there from November through March of 2005. So a short tour, but I really went there as a volunteer because, as a public affairs officer, I was most focused on trying to get awareness and people to pay attention to, this heroic battalion. This battalion, a platoon of this battalion just last weekend received the Presidential Unit Citation, which is sort of like a Medal of Honor for our unit rather than a person, based on their heroism and their actions in leading the fight in Fallujah in '04. And, no one was paying attention to them, really, and we lost 9 of our soldiers out of this battalion and sent over 40 of them home with serious catastrophic injuries, some of them without limbs. And I was there really as sort of an embedded agent, if you will. As an Army officer, I'd be on patrols, 2-3 patrols a day, during which time I'd be shooting in a high-def camera and video, and I had a satellite phone, and every night I'd be on the phone with local Portland or Eugene or Ashland, Medford, just local Oregon media with, soldiers from Oregon telling their story. And so I was there for about 5 months in '04, '05. And then I was in Afghanistan for a year-long tour in '06, '07. So.
Which battalion are you talking about that did such heroic work in Fallujah?
The 2nd Battalion, 162nd Infantry out of the Oregon Army National Guard, 41st Brigade Combat Team. And so they're it's a unit I'm very. Their motto is volunteers, and they're one of the older infantry regiments on the West Coast. They're part of the Territorial or National Guard here in Oregon. Really since the 19th century. So, had a long history and a very proud history. So,
how much time cumulatively did you spend in Iraq?
I was in Iraq just over 5 months. I was there for 4 months. So over a 5-month period, I was there for about 4.5 months.
And how much cumulative time did you spend in Afghanistan?
Between 3 trips to Afghanistan, the first 2, the first and last about a month, and the actual tour a year-long tour. So about 14, 15 months.
Did you ever see combat? Were you ever shot at?
That's an interesting thing. I never got shot. I never had a round hit my vehicle. I had a couple rounds in Baghdad, go by me, and that's an interesting feeling. But I was never in direct engagement, and as crazy as it is for an Army Ranger to say, I mean, I think I'm always, I'm a guy who's been a Ranger since he was in his early 20s, and a guy that joined the Army to be an Army Ranger, and I'm, frankly, okay with the fact that I've never had to shoot anybody, and haven't, been shot. It sounds trite, but war is hell, and I've seen held parents that have lost their children as they broke down into nervous breakdowns. I've been with wives and husbands of wounded and fallen soldiers, and I know the costs of this war because I've mitigated the circumstances back here on the home front, and I've been overseas, and lost my own soldiers. And so, I mean, that's a long way of saying I've never been directly shot or had to shoot anybody. I got pretty close at one moment in Baghdad with a heinous person that deserved the justice he got. He's now imprisoned in an Iraqi prison. But yeah, I've never had to pull a trigger.
Now, what is an Army Ranger?
Well, I euphemistically say they're the door kickers of the Army, but they're the Ranger Regiment is ultimately a member of the Special Operations Command, and they are the premier infantry regiment of the United States Army. They're airborne Ranger infantry in that their main mission is to seize airports for onward expansion. But that's certainly not what they're limited to. I mean, certainly the Rangers, are very high profile in